She stood before the mirror, her trembling hands trying to fix her lipstick for the 5th time, but her reflection wasn't what she was fighting, it was the storm inside her heart. "I can do this," Maya whispered, even though her voice cracked like fragile glass. Tonight wasn't supposed to hurt this much. It was her ex's wedding, the man she once dreamed of marrying. The invitation in her trembling hand felt like a cruel joke. But she had a plan, a reckless, desperate plan to prove to herself that she had moved on. She needed someone strong, someone impossible to ignore, someone who would make her ex regret ever letting her go. And that's when she did something crazy. She called her boss, the most composed, intimidating man she knew, Alexander Reed, the CEO of Reed Enterprises. Her fingers shook as she waited for him to answer. The moment his deep voice came through, her throat went dry. "Maya," he said, sounding calm but curious. "It's late." She hesitated, her pride screaming at her to hang up, but her heart pushed her forward. I need a favor," she finally said. "Would you be my date for a wedding?" There was silence on the line. Then, softly, "Whose wedding?" When she answered, her voice almost broke. "My ex's." Alexander leaned back in his chair, staring out at the city lights beyond his office window. He could have said no. He could have made a polite excuse and ended the call. But something in her tone, a crack between strength and sorrow, stopped him. "Text me the time and address," he said finally. "I'll be there." The next evening, Maya opened her door to find him standing there, dressed in a tailored black suit that looked like it was crafted for power itself. His tie matched the soft crimson of her dress. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. "You didn't have to go this far," she said nervously. "You said wedding," he replied with a faint smile. "I don't do anything halfway." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" As they entered the venue, heads turned. Conversations faltered. The once ordinary Maya Bennett now walked in beside the man whose presence could silence a boardroom. Her ex, Ethan, looked up from across the hall and froze mid-laugh. His bride noticed his expression instantly. Maya could feel the tension ripple through the crowd, but Alexander didn't flinch. He leaned down slightly and whispered, "Keep your chin up. You look breathtaking." Throughout the evening, Alexander played his part flawlessly. He laughed at her jokes, brushed her hair back when the wind caught it, and never once let her feel alone. When Ethan approached, smiling stiffly, Maya's heart raced. "Maya," Ethan said, his tone polite, almost rehearsed. "It's good to see you." Before she could respond, Alexander extended his hand smoothly. Alexander Reed. Maya's date. The grip between the two men lasted a beat too long, but when Alexander's gaze didn't waver, Ethan's confidence faltered. "Congratulations on your wedding," Alexander said evenly, his voice low but firm. "You're a lucky man." As the night went on, Maya started to relax. For the first time, she felt like she could breathe. Alexander wasn't just pretending to care, he was there, steady and calm, like a quiet anchor against the chaos around her. And when she caught him looking at her once, not with sympathy but with admiration, something inside her shifted. When the ceremony began, the music swelled. Ethan and his bride stood at the altar, exchanging vows of love and forever. The words stabbed at Maya like echoes of promises once whispered to her. She tried to look away, but her eyes betrayed her. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. Alexander noticed. Without a word, he reached for her hand, his thumb brushing away the tear before it fell. Their eyes met, and the noise around them faded. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," he whispered. "You already won by showing up." After the ceremony, she stepped outside into the quiet night air, the cool breeze washing away the weight of the evening. Alexander joined her, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "You didn't have to come," she said softly. "I dragged you into something ridiculous." He shook his head. "No," he said simply. "You needed someone, and for once, I wanted to be needed." For the first time, she smiled, not the kind that hides pain, but one that feels like release. "Thank you," she whispered. "For being there." He looked at her for a long moment, and in his eyes, she saw something she didn't expect, care, maybe even a quiet affection. "Anytime," he said, his voice low and sincere. Weeks passed. That one night became something neither of them could forget. Their relationship at work subtly changed, gentler smiles, longer conversations, an unspoken connection that grew with every glance. What began as a favor started to bloom into something real. One evening, Maya found herself standing outside his office again, the memory of that desperate call still fresh in her mind. But this time, she wasn't broken. She walked in with quiet confidence. He looked up, the corners of his mouth lifting. "You're not crying this time," he said softly. "Progress." She laughed, then hesitated. "Alexander," she said, stepping closer. "You remember that night? You said yes, and you stayed, even when you didn't have to." He nodded slowly. "I remember." Her heart thudded. "I thought you were doing me a favor. But you stayed for the vows. Why?" He walked around his desk, stopping inches from her. His eyes, always steady, softened. "Because," he said, "some vows are worth staying for even if they're not yours." She swallowed hard, emotion rising in her throat. "And if I told you I didn't want that night to end?" He smiled faintly. "Then maybe," he murmured, "it never did." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and in that quiet office filled with fading sunlight, everything unsaid finally made sense. He had walked into her brokenness not to fix her, but to remind her she was whole all along. And she, without realizing it, had done the same for him that night. As they left the office together, hand in hand, the world outside seemed softer, lighter. Maya no longer saw her past in fragments of pain but in lessons of strength. Alexander glanced at her, eyes filled with quiet promise. "You once asked me to be your date," he said. "Now, I'd like to ask you something." She looked up, smiling. "What's that?" "Be my reason to stay," he said simply, and as their hands tightened around each other's, Maya realized that sometimes, the people who walk into your life for one night, are the ones who were meant to stay forever. Because love doesn't always arrive dressed as a fairy tale, it often begins as a favor, and ends as fate.